Hello, guys. Can you see me? Fine?
Yeah. Okay. Okay.
Yeah. Helena? First few time to use this one. I want to make sure that, people can see me fine. So let's just wait for other guests to come in.
Okay. No problem. Good to see you, Dieter.
Yeah. Nice to see you, Derek. Nice to see you, Helena. How's it going?
Doing good. Doing wonderful. So I see there's about like 708 people showed up in this session. That's incredible.
Hey, Yubo. Yeah, we're not live yet, right?
Hey, can you hear me?
We are live, gentlemen. We are live.
Okay. Yeah,
cool. It's awesome. Casual. It's casual,
Yes, that's right.
Yeah, the background looks good, Derek and Dieters. Love the
Thank you.
room.
I got a
This is Derek's crowdcast room.
This is my everything room. I might as well. I just kind of like go over here and sleep like over in the corner. That's about it, so.
Yeah, I like the room. The shape looks pretty interesting. It's not like a typical box square.
I've been told it's my signature thing since I'm just always here. That people like get.
It is.
If I'm ever anywhere else, people are like, "Well, wait a minute, what's going on here? Where are you now?"
All right, let's just wait for Bette and then Jake to join us.
Yeah, I think we invited them. They are on the way to join. Okay.
Alrighty, we have Bette. Hello,
Bette. Hey, Bette.
Hi.
How's it going?
Good to see you.
Doing good.
Yeah, good to see everyone.
Alrighty. Oh, hey, Jacob.
Hey, guys.
Hey, so now we have everybody in the session. That's wonderful.
Perfect.
All right. Should we just get started then? I think we have a little bit over 700, people showed up. That is just amazing. So that tells us people's anticipation about Polkadot DeFi. Very hot. All right. Yeah, so let's get started. Let me just kind of introduce myself a little bit. I'm Helena, and then I'm working in Parity APAC and leading the ecosystem development and support for APAC market. It's my honor to, host this session and then moderating this session for you guys. So today, this event is Polkadot DeFi, right? It is a recurring event for all things DeFi on Polkadot. So today we're gonna, have some of the most well-known and respected names from the Polkadot ecosystem, crypto investment, and Web3 Foundation to share their views and thoughts about DeFi and on Polkadot. So now I'm going to quickly introduce my guest here. First, I have Dieter from Web3 Foundation leading the ecosystem development and support. Hey, Dieter, you want to wave your hand to our audience?
Hey, everybody. Thanks for having me here.
And I have Bette Chen, the co-founder of Acala Network. Acala Network has a very ambitious goal, aim to be the DeFi hub of Polkadot. Bette, say hi to our audience.
Oh yeah, hi everyone. Thanks for having me. Thanks for organizing.
Yeah, and I also have Derek Yu, CEO of Pure Stake, inventing and building Moonbeam network to bring the EVM compatibility to Polkadot. So Derek.
Good to see everyone here.
All right. I also have Jacob from Polychain leading the crypto research. Jacob, thank you very much for coming, join us.
Yep, definitely. Thanks for having me.
And then last but not least, Yubo, CEO of Parallel Finance, providing higher liquidity, yield, and capital efficiency for Polkadot ecosystem. Yubo, you want to say hi to the audience?
Hi, everyone.
All right, cool.
Yeah, hi, everyone. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. So as I mentioned that this event has close to 700 registers, and now I see that most people actually showed up in this session. That's clearly tells us the anticipation of DeFi on Polkadot has been incredibly strong, right? So Polkadot network offers some nice features such as like a minimal transaction cost, right? Shared security, cross-chain interoperability, yada yada. All those kind of features together makes Polkadot an ideal place for DeFi to take its next step, onto the world stage. So I think, now having the Parity going live on Kusama and soon on Polkadot, this moment has finally come. So I'm sure that friends from the this great Polkadot community are super curious about the latest status of Polkadot DeFi. So let's just get started. I'm just gonna, ask my guests to introduce yourself and your project or your company a little bit more, and tell us, why you choose Polkadot or Substrate to build your project. But of course, the second part of the first question is not super relevant to Jacob and Dieter. So you two can just kind of, ignore this. So why don't we start with the lady? Bette, do you want to get started? Just tell us a little bit more about yourself and Acala Network.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, thanks for the question. So I'm Bette, co-founder of Acala, and started to build the project about 2.5 years ago. It's a long time. And then we as a team, like the founders of Acala, there were 4 of us. We're actually combined teams from Polkadot and also Laminar, both builders in the Substrate ecosystem prior to that. And then we actually started using Substrate as a framework even before I think the Polkadot, repo starts to be active. That was like 3 years ago. I felt like a century ago. But back then we were trying to find a framework that we can actually customize and build out our solution. And then we're more application builders, basically, to that matter. So we looked at Cosmos SDK at the time. We looked at ETH2. Obviously, we just discovered Substrate at that time because it was still very early. And then there were also, I think, 2 other frameworks that we kind of discovered at that time, but they no longer exist. So out of those choices, we found, Substrate, and also later on the Polkadot setup has the best technological, advantages, but also very importantly, commercially, and how to bootstrap the community and ecosystem is a highlight for us, because I can't imagine as an application team, we'll have to raise hundreds of millions of dollars and bootstrap each one of us. And that doesn't work. And especially we decided to go into DeFi, and security is very important. If we can leverage the security that, another layer that has been built up, for example, Polkadot currently sitting at close to 30 billion, haven't checked the market cap today. So that is the security that we kind of build on top of. And that gives you a lot of confidence of the, sort of the application security that are built on top. So yeah, so those are probably a few highlights that we have. And also we've been followers of Dr. Gavin Wood and the Parity team. So there's a lot of, 10x engineer attracts 10x engineer thing there for us to join the ecosystem as well. So those are for us. So.
That's awesome. Thank you, Bette. Hey, I'm just going to give it to Derek. Derek, you want to get started?
Sure. So I'm Derek Yu. I'm the CEO of PureStake, but we're the folks building the project Moonbeam. And the idea for Moonbeam is that, we've worked quite a bit on the kind of like Ethereum compatibility features in Substrate. So, the idea is that we're seeking to create, an Ethereum-like environment, but attached to Polkadot, as a parachain. And that allows developers that are familiar with Solidity to be productive, like in a Polkadot environment. It allows us to kind of leverage a lot of the Ethereum development tools in a Polkadot setting, but then also extend the base, Ethereum feature set with things that are only possible on Polkadot. So things like cross-chain integration scenarios and things. I think we're going to talk a little bit more about some of these, later in the talk. So I think that's the core kind of idea. I think. On your question of why Substrate, for me, it comes down to it's kind of like maximum expressivity. So I think this is kind of the key point around Polkadot is you kind of combine this maximum expressivity along with connectivity. So, so you kind of make possible these highly differentiated chains, but they can all kind of cooperate together. So I think that's the key Polkadot value prop, at least for me. And we found that quite attractive, among other things. Great ecosystem community and security. Some of the points that Bette mentioned. But I think that point is kind of the key one for me. And we similarly looked at Cosmos SDK and some other choices, and we felt that Substrate was going to be the best choice for us. It had the expressivity we needed to kind of accomplish kind of the goal we had in mind.
All right, great. Thank you, Yubo.
Hey, this is Yubo. I am the founder of Parallel Finance. We started a company actually around 5 months ago, and then this is relatively faster space for us, and we are building a lot of Polkadot related projects. And so for us, first of all, it's totally agree with Derek's opinions about the maximum expressivity. I think this is a great idea. That's kind of one of the reasons that we felt really obsessed with the substrate framework. It actually provides optionalities for developer to sort of accomplish complex applications that they wanted to build versus a purely world state versions of Ethereum where you can only build certain application on top. In fact, I was building Ethereum projects before, building a under collateralized lending protocols, and then we noticed so much difficulties of gathering data to scale up the protocols. And now once we sort of realize the powers of this connectivity between heterogeneous blockchains, then it gives the power back to developers to accomplish much complex goal in the Web3 world in the next 5 to 10 years. And that's make us really passionate about this space and try to develop something great in this specific sector. But just to go back to my background, I am an entrepreneur and also an investor. I've been in crypto space over the last 4.5 years. So being on both sides of entrepreneur and investors give me a lot of perspective of, build products and then how to find people and how to invest. And all of those will be built, bring to the parallel finance team.
Thank you, Yubo. All right, so I'm just going to give a question to Dieter. Dieter, you want to, say hello to the audience and introduce yourself a little bit more?
Sure. Hey, everybody. Thanks so much for having me here today. So I run ecosystem development at the Web3 Foundation. I joined almost 3 years ago, actually, and focused primarily on helping projects succeed in different ways, which occupies like a lot of different facets. But super excited to be here and, in such great company.
All right, Jacob. So we want to, I'm sure that, a lot of audience are curious about Polychain, right? And then, the people working in Polychain. Why didn't you tell us a little bit more about you and the how's like, working in Polychain?
Yep, for sure. Yeah, thanks a lot for having me. So I'm Jacob. I'm a researcher at Polychain. Researcher really means I'm part of the deal team and the investment team over here. We have an investment team about 8 or 9 that manages a couple different funds. One of which is more traditional liquid hedge fund style vehicle that holds a ton of DOT. We have a couple of different venture funds that invest in projects built on top of DOT, and then we run a couple of ecosystem funds too. And outside of that, we have a few different groups that do things like that sort of focus on active participation within networks. So we have Polychain Labs and some sort of like internal DeFi operations that allow us to be active in networks, running validator nodes, providing liquidity, participating in PLOs, the whole gambit. I think when Olaf started Polychain back in 2016 or so, the thesis from the start was always to find new crypto native ways to be active in these networks. And that's why this is a crypto focused fund. And it's been a lot of fun so far. I've been here for about 1.5 years and have been able to follow along with quite a bit of the DOT journey so far, and definitely just excited for what's to come.
All right, thank you guys. Thank you. All right, so I think since this session is about Polkadot DeFi, right? So naturally, we're gonna come to the first question, which is more like how do you view Polkadot DeFi, and then is there any particular opportunity or challenges to you? So I like to start from Dieter and then Jacob for this question. So Dieter, do you want to kind of share with us and the audience what's your view about Polkadot DeFi and any interesting opportunity or challenge you see in Polkadot DeFi system? Sorry, can you guys hear me? I was oh, Dieter, you were on mute. Okay, cool.
Sorry, I was just having some trouble with my mic there, but things seem to be good now. So I mean, just from a pure ecosystem perspective, right now there's almost 200 projects that are building on Substrate, and about say 100, 250 of those want to be parachains, and about roughly half of those projects are focused on DeFi, maybe a little less than half, and then this isn't even counting the number of applications, the number of projects that are actually building on parachains. Taking that number, you're probably at at least 200 kind of different applications or different platforms that are building something or want to build something DeFi related on Polkadot. So I think just from kind of a networks effects and ecosystem perspective, I think when we actually get parachains and when there's critical mass there, it's going to be, at least I think the second biggest DeFi ecosystem, rivaling Ethereum, if not the biggest, in say within 2 years or something like that. It will definitely take time, but so I'm super excited about that, and I think uniquely what Polkadot will enable, or at least what I expect it to enable, which I think is super exciting, is really the ability to have liquidity in many different places, but also use that liquidity in applications in other places. I mean, one kind of specific way, like one specific example, is to have liquidity in one parachain and then kind of use that to actually leverage an application in a different parachain. To say have collateral on one parachain and use it in an application on a different one. But then taking that even a step further to have liquidity or collateral in different networks, like on Ethereum, Bitcoin as well, and use that in applications built on Polkadot, which I think is really special. And I think once we see that working really, really well, and once we see kind of this critical mass of many different applications where you can get nice kind of composable building blocks of applications that really complement each other, I think you're going to have something much, much more powerful than what exists today.
I see. Okay. All right. So Jacob, what's your view?
Yeah, I think I agree with a lot of what Dieter said. I think he hit the nail on the head there. But just maybe to expand on some of what he brought up, one of the places that I see that, ETH ecosystem took 4 or 5 years to develop. Parachains haven't even launched yet, and we already have so many different chains building on here. And if you break out the DeFi space specifically, it's just insane how quickly things have picked up. You have 6 or 8 teams building borrowing lending protocols. You have teams working on stable coins. There's a handful of teams working on DEXs, staking derivatives, synthetic assets, you name it. Any subsector of DeFi, there are multiple teams in the dot space building, which is just awesome to see. Like right out the gate when parachains launch and the ecosystem starts really kicking off on Polkadot, you're going to have, within 6 months after a few different parachain auctions, you're going to have the full gambit of a DeFi ecosystem out in the open, interoperable and active. So super excited for that. I think there was a bit of a kind of like a hype cycle. I think we went through a little bit like late 2020, early 2021, where a lot of building happened. But, since then, I think some of that hype has died down, which is just super healthy for the ecosystem. I think now is the time when we sort of start to see, people who are hopping in for a quick buck be differentiated from those true builders. And I think everybody you have on stage today is in the true builder category. And so really excited, I think, for what things are going to look like over the next 6 to 12 months, especially as the ecosystem kicks off. In terms of,
that's right.
In terms of opportunities, just like super quick, the 2 that come to mind, Dieter mentioned one of them, which is the building blocks piece. It's so cool that, the substrate framework enables all these different possibilities to be able to like plug and play with different pieces of the ecosystem. And like every time, like when Acala and Moonbeam are both working on their own EVM implementations, that then becomes available to the whole ecosystem out of the box, which is so cool. And the other one that I've spent some time thinking about recently has been governance as a primitive has, I think, maybe one of the things that people have totally overlooked in the DAO ecosystem. While all these DeFi projects in Ethereum, I think are, scrambling to try and figure out organization of their DAO and treasury management and all this stuff, that sort of comes out of the box just with the design of the Polkadot chain, which I think is just going to be, from day one, these DAOs are going to be able to launch and have like well-structured, well-organized DAOs that are going to be able to do a lot more efficiently than others. Challenges, I think, tooling still needs to be improved, and there's definitely some pieces of the puzzle that will come with time, I think, as the ecosystem starts to grow. But I'm sure Yubo, Derek, and Bette can touch on some more of those.
All right. Okay. Thank you, Jacob. Those are good sharing. So I'm just gonna, ask, Bette to start from your view for this question.
So I think both Jacob and Dieter have touched on a lot of the fundamentals, that actually attracted us to come and build. And then, at Acala, our vision has always been, creating decentralized finance that's more open, that's more transparent, that's more accessible to everyone on the planet. So that includes crypto people, degens, as well as my mom and dad. And for a lot of the stuff that we are using today, like I'm using today, CryptoPunk, farming here and there, doesn't matter how hard I work, my mom and dad would never use those wallets and then ape any of those protocols at all. But I can already see with the stuff that we are building here at Acala, and also like other folks are, supporting us and in the ecosystem that we can integrate with, is, like now we have Polkadot as, a very solid, layer 0. And then the asset class is a new asset class with great potential there. I think DOT is one of the mostly held institutional asset out there, and it also has this proof of stake like yield component in there. And then at Acala, we created a family of DOT derivatives that's gonna power a lot of the DeFi applications on top of us, because Acala is building those infrastructure, right? So those DOT derivatives will stay on Acala as collateral, can flow to Moonbeam, to Parallel, to other chains to power other DeFi protocols. And then on top of that, I can see, my mom one day will be able to swipe a card and then do her grocery shopping in dollars, in Acala dollar, for example. But she doesn't know it because it's in dollars and powered by my staking yield. She doesn't know, but it's almost like free lunch every day for me that she goes grocery shopping and doing that. And that is only possible if we can, kind of so we have this concept of hybrid finance, right? So we are the DeFi layer, and then we actually connect ourselves into all the agencies that are able to deliver those consumer experiences to the users. So surely then you ask the question, why can't others do the same? And one big sort of advantage for how we are building stuff here is the flexibility to customize, because each one of those agencies, they may have when you go to mass market, when you go to institutions, there are very specific security as well as product and experience requirements that we have to meet. For example, when my mom swiped the card, you can't expect her to hold some ETH, right? Or even DOT, which is super weird. You will expect her just like, if she needs to pay some fees, it should be in dollars or even New Zealand dollar, right? That's where I am, to make the experience really seamless and transparent. Even simple things like that, it's very hard to do in an environment that's very rigid. No one can actually change it. However, in the situation that we're in Substrate and all the Parachain infrastructure that everyone is building here, doesn't matter which field that we specialize in, right? Surely, we're specializing in DeFi, but there are also other folks, a lot of other folks in different areas. Even in DeFi, you specialize in your own sort of domain, right? And then you can do that thing really well because specialization always trumps generalization. So I think, I think it takes a long time to get to this point. But then once we get through that hurdle, now you've seen Kusama, Parachains launch on Kusama, and then, everyone gradually open up their Parachains, capabilities. Karura, our network on Kusama, started to turn on all those DeFi primitives that we wrote on our white paper 3 years ago, like the stablecoin, like the DEX, and also liquid staking. So you can see all of those working in reality, and then you can see where sort of Polkadot will actually take us to in a sort of next level up, right? So I'm certainly very, very excited for what's going to come in the next few months, I guess.
Awesome, thank you. Hey, so Derek, Yubo, do you guys want to add on something for this question?
Sure, I can chime in that. For me, Polkadot DeFi, as has been mentioned, is just coming to life now, right? With the parachains kind of just, on Kusama first, like activating all their features now. In fact, we just did that like earlier today, like for Moon River, our Kusama deployment. So I think that we're just at the beginning now of like this new chapter, and we're going to see how the story unfolds. I think my take is that often kind of the first things that happen are, will take familiar forms, I'm pretty sure, right? Because there's a lot of, existing thought, existing things. So those are the kind of the first forms that kind of instantiate. which is fine, and that's actually core part of our idea is to allow for those existing forms to come to to Polkadot. But I think the thing that I'm more interested in the longer run, that's the real opportunity, is kind of leveraging this like Polkadot architecture. So I've talked before about I believe there's going to be kind of a new kind of multi-chain application that's uniquely enabled by the Polkadot architecture that lives across multiple chains. That's kind of what some of the other folks have mentioned. And in doing so, it's going to be much more scalable and efficient than what we've seen to date. And so I think that's probably the biggest opportunity and the thing that I'm most interested in kind of the longer run.
Mm-hmm. What about you, Bo?
Yeah, I think everyone has mentioned a lot of great points. I don't want to repeat on that, but a few points I can probably add on some thought on top. One of them is actually about the opportunity in the institutional side for Polkadot ecosystems. If you talk to a lot of traditional banks, talk to a lot of traditional asset managers, Point72, Two Sigma, Jump Trading, Ribbit Capital, some VCs, they start to come into the space by buying to Bitcoin, Ethereum, and then maybe some of the index. I guess Polkadot as one of the really promising interoperability chain is still sort of early in their holdings. And then what we see one of the opportunities is actually enable those institutions to not just stake, not just hold it, but actually actively participate in Polkadot DeFi's, native DeFi's, to generate yield, to generate lending and borrowings, demand, and then in order to improve their capital efficiency. On the other hand, Polkadot ecosystem is very interesting because it's layer 0 instead of layer 1 as of Ethereum. So a lot of the value are going to accrue in the Parachain itself, because Parachain charges transaction fees, and Parachain token, native token itself, have a lot of utility. So it also quite it will take some time, but eventually when the institution realize that Parachain accrues a lot of values, not just stock, then I think that will be the moment where we have to have some sort of index fund or some sort of way to get them some exposure easily. And I think those are bigger, upside for the DOT ecosystem. And then from our standpoint, I think education is really important. As I said, a lot of institutions, a lot of users are still in an early stage of holding coins, but obviously the natural next step will be using all of the DeFi applications and then get deeper into the space. Education is important. Infrastructure, wallets, especially question wallets, infrastructure are super important. And also integrations with Ledger, with hardware wallets are key, one of the key for those institutions to go on board.
All right. Okay, cool. Thank you, guys. Those are good thoughts. So I see some of the questions from the audience is very much, try to find out how to hunt the next, gem like Acala, Moonbeam, and Parallel Fi, right, in Polkadot DeFi. So I guess this question probably will be more relevant to Polychain. Jacob, would you mind to tell us a little bit more, about what is the investment opportunities in Polkadot DeFi? I understand you just mentioned a few categories, right, in the previous questions, but would you mind to tell us a little bit more, about what's your view of the next great investment opportunity in Polkadot DeFi?
Yeah, for sure. So I think the reason that Polkadot is interesting to us at all is because of the fact that we sort of recognize that there's sort of this DeFi 1.0 where we built out all of these primitives, the smart contracts on Ethereum that do a lot of great things, but don't necessarily do all of the things we would necessarily want a DeFi application to build or be able to do. And building in the context of Polkadot Parachain or within the interoperable Polkadot ecosystem, we get a lot of those additional things. And I think you're seeing this right now with a lot of the core DeFi primitives within the ETH ecosystem. Every project, every DeFi project in ETH right now is asking themselves okay, how are we going to become interoperable with other chains? How are we going to make our UX better and not be just subject to the limitations of any specific underlying chain? How can we improve this sort of the user experience for users? And this, if I think that obviously it was a great bootstrapping mechanism, sort of the way they did it, but what Polkadot really enables is for us to step back and start from first principles and really build from the ground up to optimize for a specific use case. And so I think over the course of the next 2, 3, 4 years, it's going to be really interesting to see, can existing DeFi primitives as they exist today evolve to kind of create the kind of DeFi 2.0 or grand DeFi experience that we need, or are they going to be replaced by alternatives? And we see a lot of alternatives popping up in the Polkadot ecosystem that I think are really attractive. And the best part is you can build things in the Polkadot ecosystem that you can't build anywhere else. Using the substrate framework, I think is just such a game changer for developers. And I think it was really hard to do maybe 2017, 2018, when DeFi had no users and we weren't actually sure if there was going to be any demand for this kind of stuff. Now the game has totally changed. It's obvious there's a ton of demand for DeFi, and then it's only going to grow. And with that in mind, now we can start to think about like, what does the end state of these protocols look like? And we can start building them. And so, I think Parallel and Acala kind of do that outright. And, what's most important to us, I think, when we think about trying to find which projects we should be investing in Polkadot, probably even more so than it does when we're investing in other ecosystems, especially smart contract-based ecosystems. The team is just so important here. Unlike building out a smart contract where you can sort of maybe hack it together in a weekend and kind of improve it over the course of a couple months. I mean, in Polkadot, we're launching entirely new chains. I mean, it's almost like investing in a layer 1 and DeFi protocol at the same time. And so it requires a technical capability far beyond just what we'd see in the smart contract space, and frankly requires like a little bit more of a grind, because there's different pieces of the puzzle that are going to have to be we're going to have to find ways to sync them throughout the ecosystem. And while it'll be easy to, there'll be like a protocol to interoperate between different parachains, that doesn't necessarily mean that all of the infrastructure will be cross-chain compatible and whatnot. So there's like all these different problems I think that come up in the context of this, but this is, what it takes to build the next generation of financial infrastructure. And so, I think we're pretty pumped for everything we've seen so far, and excited to see new things built.
All right, awesome. Yeah. Hey, by the way, so I noticed you guys recently closed a round with ParallelFi, right? And then Polychain has been their leading investor. Can you tell us, like, how you think about the ParallelFi? Like, what is the reason for you guys to invest this ParallelFi?
Yeah, for sure. So we've been chatting with Yubo for quite a while. At one point, we were, even trying to hire him. So it's, I think it's fitting that we ended up investing. But the thing I will say about Parallel, just sort of to keep it short, is that every time I chat with Yubo and the team, I walk away even more excited about the project. Parallel is one of those where I think that there was so much infrastructure in the ecosystem that needs to be built right away. And in that first hype cycle, you had everybody kind of come in and build out a lot of the core primitives in their sort of base form, which has been huge, and so excited for that. What has stood out to us about Parallel is, even in the midst of an incredibly crowded DeFi ecosystem on Polkadot, like I said, there's a handful of teams building in every category you could think of. Parallel seems to be innovating on each of these subsectors, sort of starting back from first principles and thinking like, okay, how should curves be designed here? What kind of optimizations could we put within this DEX to optimize for a specific context? Like, how could we innovate upon the state of the art here? And so Parallel to us is not just a, project that is sort of like porting over existing tech from one ecosystem into another. This is, a project that's building upon the state of the art in, on top of everything that we see on ETH and Solana and all these other chains. And, I think with, in terms of Moonbeam and Acala, who are both also on stage, I think that the work that they've done has really stood out too. I mean, with Moonbeam specifically, I think that ecosystem they've been able to build is one of the reasons that I think everybody's so excited about DOT. I mean, it's not just that people are building parachains, it's every ETH competitor is thinking about how can they plug into the ETH ecosystem. And Acala, I think, is just, sort of taken the whole DOT ecosystem by storm. And rather than just building out like one product or two products, every day I feel like they're building something new, which is so exciting to see. So it's been a pleasure, I think, to follow the development so far.
Awesome. Thank you. Hey, Yubo, do you want to add on something? Like, since you guys have a pretty strong, the investment profile, and how do you like to use those capitals to build your team and build your market? Do you have any kind of a high-level plan to share with us? Just for real quick.
Yeah, for sure. We actually just closed. Although we haven't announced for the Series A, we raised over $22 million, and then obviously we're going to use the funds to hire more people to develop, and then those are the most important factors to us. And we see like team talents are the #1 asset as a core value as a protocol, because all of the protocol needs to have talented people, developers to build, and we want to incentivize them enough and to attract them to our company. And then obviously we have a very packed roadmap going forward from Q4 to next year, and then beyond what we are building right now, some of the primitives, but we're planning to launch our auction loan products, our interest rate swapped, under collateralized lending, and then a lot of the cool features, including index fund and stuff like that in the long term. And then obviously, like, we had a lot of good ideas on how a lot of financial stuff works, collaborating with a lot of the academic institutions. And then, so yeah, I think hiring and then R&D will be the main stuff for us. And then anyone who are interested, please join us as well.
Awesome. All right. Thank you, guys. Yeah. So I'm going to move to the next question. I want you guys to share with the audience that, what's your view or projection, of the Polkadot DeFi in 2 years? This is going to be, a question that you guys can use your wild imagination. For example, like, what do you guys think about the market cap of the crypto, crypto space as a whole? Or, what is the possibility of the market cap of the DeFi ecosystem in Polkadot, or maybe, the total value locked in the Polkadot DeFi? Just share some of your thoughts, wild imagination, anything that could be, interesting that you want to share with the audience. So I want to start with Derek, for this question. Derek, what do you think about, like, what's your view of the Polkadot DeFi in 2 years?
Yeah, I guess I'll express it as kind of like what my vision of like what I think it can and should be. I think I would be quite pleased if there's, let's say, between 50 and 100 like high quality like parachains running. I think good token and like remote call interop. I mean, that that's something that I think is a lot of teams we're working with Acala, for example, like on that. I mean, that's something that I think will unlock a huge amount of potential. I think an awesome like wallet and like and user UX like that. Again, I go back to this kind of these unique things that are possible on Polkadot. It's substrate and the chains are part of that story, but it's also kind of a front end that also needs to be kind of like multi-chain, natively multi-chain aware, I guess, right? So a lot of the existing tools, like were built with like a mono-chain context in mind. So you take something like, for example, like something like MetaMask, right? You attach to one chain at a time, you move to another chain. It's like, well, that doesn't really work so well if you have an application that's spanning like 4 or 5 different parachains. Like, what does that even mean, right? So you need the tools to kind of be reimagined in this kind of like native multi-chain way. And I already see like teams building that. So I think that in 2 years' time, we're going to have like a lot of great progress on that. And then like kind of like bridging to other chains and just like assets, right? I mean, I think that just having like a lot of assets that are able to flow around like in a smooth way, like across all these different environments. I think Peter was mentioning that earlier. That's kind of my hope and my vision for what's going to be the case. I think that's going to be quite powerful, basically.
Interesting. Dieter, what about you? What's the picture of the Polkadot DeFi, right, in your mind in 2 years?
So I mean, really consistent, I think, with what Derek said and what I was saying before. Really, this like critical mass of different types of tech. Just to add a bit on what Derek said, like a big challenge, which is also the opportunity, is really like this multi-chain framework, and it takes like very much like a different attitude from the point of projects to actually build infrastructure, because everyone's used to having tokens or like contract calls really on the same chain, and like the obvious thing to do if you want to interact with an asset on another chain is to kind of bring it over to your parachain, which also doesn't really make sense in the context of Polkadot. So you have to think about, if I have an application on one parachain, how do I interact with assets on a different parachain or applications elsewhere? And this is both going to unlock the power of Polkadot and kind of applications built on top of Polkadot and even on Polkadot and between other chains. But it also takes like quite a lot of education and quite a lot, I think, of trial and error for applications and projects and developers to really understand how to build stuff in this new paradigm. And so, I mean, with that, like, I think there will be a period when you're seeing like the same stuff, right? The same stuff built on Ethereum, on Polkadot. But I think once people realize kind of the power of this new paradigm, and once people have a chance to play around and kind of really test stuff, you're just going to see completely different stuff. And quite honestly, I don't know what that is. But I think, you know, spoiler alert, I really didn't say much. But I think you're going to see kind of completely different applications that just don't have one backend, but have like 10 different parachains interact with Bitcoin and Ethereum, and then you'll just have much more powerful things out there. But it's really hard to say what that is yet because nobody knows that.
That's why we need to use a wild imagination.
Yeah.
Think
I know,
wild.
maybe I bet, honestly, I bet Derek and Yubo and Bette like have much more specific things in mind than I do because they're actually building it. I'm just trying to facilitate it.
I think there's a really cool, like, you know, thought exercise that we can do is basically imagine, like, you know, in 2 years time frame, first of all, we're going to have at least like dozens of parachain launch on both Kusama and
hopefully more.
Yeah, hopefully more, maybe hundreds of them, right? And then imagine each of them is a like maybe like I don't know, like one of them could be you know, Monero building privacy coins, and then Maker providing stable coins. And I'm not talking about that specific company, but someone who can build it. Maybe IoT specific blockchains with identity change on top, and then, you know, like maybe another layer one specified, you know, consensus mechanisms, and then maybe there's, you know, like streaming chains, file storage coins, and stuff like that, all interconnected, right? In the current market, none of them are connected. You can't really interact with each other, and there's no way that even transfer an asset, not to mention about function costs. But if it's possible to allow, you know, those interoperability in the deeper levels, and I think that creates multiple possibilities of application on top, just like how you do this combinations of, you know, asset or functions, then you have a exponential possibility of things that can be involved. On the other hand, I think it's cool that Polkadot or substrate framework enables some really interesting mechanism. One of them includes, you know, the sort of the schedule transactions, which is pretty hard to do on Ethereum, but it's relatively easier to do on Polkadot. And so, you know, things like then you know, dollar cost average buy-in to a specific coins are super easy to build on Polkadot space. Anything related to time or even the derivative space, that would be super cool to build on top. As Jacob mentioned about the DeFi 1.0 and 2.0 and maybe the 3.0. And I see that, you know, there is a cost obviously from transition from Ethereum to DOT, but there are obviously like validating like the new framework of DeFi 2.0 that doesn't really exist on the Ethereum system. One of them I can think of is obviously like, you know, derivative markets that haven't been solved that well on Ethereum ecosystem. So I can think of that as a pretty big, you know, propeller with those interoperabilities involved.
Awesome. Bette, what about you? Oh, sorry, Dieter, you want to say something?
Sorry, so just to quickly add, like, you know, a big issue you're seeing in Ethereum now is a lot of projects are scaling into the second layer, which is great, and it's giving them like much more functionality than they've had before, and it's allowing things to evolve more. But you're seeing like different projects scale into different second layer solutions, and you're losing like that combined with the fact that you still have some projects like not scaling through that, you lose a lot of the composability that really makes like DeFi and Ethereum really special. And I think that's going to be a key challenge. And one of the things like for Ethereum, I mean, until, you know, ETH2 works, if that does come to fruition, and if that comes to fruition in a good amount of time, and Polkadot sells this natively, right? So this is really what is going to, I think, power a lot of the future of what DeFi looks like, and generally like what any application looks like when built on Polkadot.
Awesome. Hey, Bette, Jacob, you guys want to add on some of your views or your imagination over the Polkadot DeFi in 2 years?
I think a lot of those are not that far-fetched. Like the example that Rubo gave, we probably can already do. We're just waiting for example, we're kind of waiting for Interlay to come on board. Then you can already, Bitcoin maxis, they can actually land on Polkadot and then use Bitcoin to kind of like mine dot rewards. And also can turn those rewards into dollars and off-ramp and do their shoppings, and also can turn those into privacy coins and in probably 1 or 2 transactions. And if you are building an application on top of all of that, in transparent to multiple parachains, those could be just one click of a button for the user to experience, Bitcoin maxis, paying fees in BTC, earning dot rewards, and then can off-ramp to dollars and in a privacy preserved way, right? And those not very far-fetched, because with all the tech that we've integrated with Interlay and other parachains, that can be done. And we're just waiting for parachains to be launched one after another. And those can be a reality. So it's not something that, we're still in a dreaming or kind of like a white paper stage. Those are already things being implemented, and they're just like waiting for the sequence of launch to happen. And then, and things like that is like still quite far away from individuals, because we're still waiting, once those things that what I was talking about are still infrastructure level, because once you got those infrastructure right, in a way that's scalable, because I think a lot of people like I think Dieter is trying to alert to is people are now trying to scale to the mass market, and then they look back and realize their fundamentals are not quite right. So they try to piece together some fundamentals, and I see increasingly people are quoting Polkadot and also Polkadot-like architecture as a way for their next evolution, whereas they already gone to market, right, with an architecture, and reversely kind of like architect that is not an easy thing, because it took Gavin and 40 engineers to build like 3 years. But in a way, I'm also very pleased, because it also means things that we all here, like folks here, all kind of envisioned in the last 2 years or 3. Now everyone else has come to the same conclusion. This is the right direction to go. But of course, you say it, and then writing it on a white paper to actually build it are 2 completely different things, right? Mm-hmm. You see a lot in the crypto space where the white paper or the vision can be so grand, but when it comes to building, 0.001% of those actually come to fruition, right? So I think that is something to be mindful of when you look at those things happen in the market. And at the same time, I think in the Polkadot, what's really magical is it also has this, I see some questions asking around crowd loan, right? It is something that to get your mind around, but it has a very magical thing to filter out accountability, like people who are accountable, or people who just have big audacious dreams but never deliver. Because this crowd loan mechanism is almost like a reverse ICO. Like participants, like individuals who try to support a project, you get your principal back, right? Because you put money in a crowd loan, but after a period of time, you get the principal back. So you have nothing to lose apart from some opportunity cost to back a project that you think it's going to change something or create some value. And then the next component in there is the project. Because the project couldn't do fundraising through this process, we're not taking anybody's money. And then we also have to give out a whole chunk of our rewards. For example, in Acala, we are fixed supply. So we can't print to rewards for those people. We're fixed supply. So whatever we give out is heavyweight for the team, right? So we're giving our reward, not taking any money from anybody. So how do we win? The only way we win as a project is we deliver. That's why we are, so have such a tight timeline when we launch Karura. Is like one product after another, try to bootstrap everything, because that's how we actually be able to create value for the community that we are able to acquire. And then, but the upside of that is, if we actually deliver, then the community wins a big time, because they get their principal back, they get, a piece of the project that is, creating a lot of value. And then at the same time, each one of us here, if we're able to do that, then Polkadot wins a big time, right? And if Polkadot wins a big time, every one of us here wins even bigger time, because Polkadot is the backbone, not just technologically, but also in terms of value and collateral value that powering the entire economy that we're building on top of. That becomes a trickle up effect for everybody, with a lot of accountability that's enforced trustlessly on the blockchain. So I don't know how many people actually get that point, but that's through our experience. Sure, it's not like a 1 second thing for it to happen, but this is going to create long-lasting effects in the ecosystem. And once that ripple gets out, it's going to be a huge wave out there for a lot of like decent builders and also very much incentive aligned communities, right? So so that's sort of my take.
All right, thank you, Betty. Yeah, so I heard that you guys talking about your like a vision of the Polkadot DeFi in terms of like network infrastructure, right? The new product and the service coming out, right? New features coming out. I wanted Jacob to conclude this question by providing a little bit more like a high level view from like investment firm. By looking into like some quantitative numbers, like how big you think the Polkadot DeFi is going to be in terms of like TVL, or in terms of the total market cap. You're doing research, so show some of your research results with us.
Oh man, all of those things are really hard to tell. But I will say, I know. I will say with both the ETH and sort of broader DeFi ecosystem and Polkadot, every time we set a little target, we have a sentiment channel in our Slack, and sometimes we're tossing around ideas of like, what do you think it'll be? Every number we've ever given for DeFi has been blown absolutely out of the water. And every target we've given for like Polkadot PLOs has been blown out of the water. And so I'm sure that I think if in 2 to 3 years, Polkadot is on the order of many billions in TVL, I think that'll be a good place to start. And you sort of have the compounding forces of the DeFi ecosystem as a whole growing in usage, and some pretty impressive things happening in the Polkadot ecosystem that sort of offer not only sort of beta but some alpha exposure, I think, to a lot of the cool new stuff happening in the space. So I don't know that I can give any specific numbers, but I will say one of the trends I think that people have been talking about here is the idea of building natively in an interoperable ecosystem. Right now, I think that ecosystems are super tribal, and you're building in one and not the other. In 3-4 years time, I don't think people are going to view it that way. They're simply going to build wherever the best tooling and infrastructure is. And that's what DOT is. I mean, you're building the DOT ecosystem, but it just so happens that the DOT ecosystem is everybody else's ecosystem too. So a lot of the projects I think that are currently built within sort of siloed ecosystems are going to start to realize the benefits of, building from an interoperability first perspective, and having an opportunity to sort of like natively plug into all this different infrastructure through standardized and, standardized protocols that sort of fit across the, a number of different chains, not just sort of any specific subset of that. So I think the DOT definitely has a long way to go, and we're just at the beginning of things, but everything so far I think points to a very quick pickup in DeFi activity early in the life cycle, and hopefully a long road ahead, perhaps becoming, if the thesis here plays out, I mean, you could imagine DOT not only getting up to TVL values or, kind of usage values that mirror those that we see in existing ecosystems, but perhaps expanding that and sort of growing the pie entirely. So yeah, it'll be fun to see this things really kick off for the next few months.
All right, cool. Yeah, we still didn't get a number from you, but I'm not gonna give you any hard time. Okay, so we're gonna move on, right? We're actually running out of time a little bit, so I'm just gonna speed up a little bit, for the rest of the few questions. So when we talk about DeFi, honestly, we cannot get away from like Ethereum DeFi, right? So I'm just curious about like what's Derek's view about how you think the Polkadot DeFi ecosystem should be collaborative partnership with the Ethereum DeFi, since you guys are focused on like bring in, the EVM compatibility. I guess, audience will be very, interested to know your view.
Yeah, I'm the anti like ETH killer, I guess, because I don't think it's a winner take all. I think there's a huge amount of inertia. Developers value in Ethereum DeFi. It's going to be here for the foreseeable future. So the question is more about like how do you interoperate with it? We've obviously been working quite heavily in this area, and I think just tying it back to I liked Bette, some of your comments. I mean, I do think that Polkadot has this this very advanced like architecture that I think is correct. But you don't get there on day one, right? So I think our view is that part of the role we can play is to help like bridge like certain things like over like as as bridging solutions while this like all these infrastructure and all these things are being developed. That's like at least part of the role that we think we can play. And yeah, I mean in terms of Ethereum interoperability, there's been a lot of work done to make Substrate like compatible like with Ethereum based technologies. But there's also like a ton of like bridging like efforts as well. I mean, I think we're working with like there's like 5 or 6 like different like bridging teams that are going to be deploying to like to
yeah.
so
I heard all kinds of good news about your company.
Quite a lot. I mean, you're going to see that this is like in the market. It's not just Polkadot. It's in the market itself. There's like this like realization of demand for being able to transit assets at least, like even if that's the simplest use case. And so I think that's a good sign. I think for Polkadot, which has this capability kind of built in with no additional trust assumptions, like in the base layer itself. So I think that's, those are all positive things.
All right. Okay. Yeah. Sounds good. So we're about to, close up, so I'm just going to, give all the projects teams, a little bit show time, so I have like one question for you guys. So you can probably just tell us a little bit, more about your project. I want to start with Parallel again, because Parallel Finance, is providing the higher yield, right? So can you tell us, how have been doing to achieve this goal, and then anything else that you want to share with the audience in this session today, please?
I think because we have very limited time, we're almost about to end, so I'm not going to go into any details. But I think the best way to understand how we have the highest yield is by going to our website, test out a testnet, and then learn more about how mechanism works. We have some very special and interesting design behind all of the complex financial primitives, and so definitely tried it out. But at the same time, I think we're having a lot of the new maths and functions that we created. Some of them are on our website as well. So I think it will be best to try it out. And also, we are doing the crowd loan for Kusama in slot 6 to 10. Welcome to participate for, around September time. And then, yeah, I think that's the best way to learn more about us.
All right, thank you. So Derek, coming back to you, that I heard, quite a bit of good news, about Moonbeam lately. So I know you guys have been launching or rolling out some nice stuff. Can you share some of your like new partnerships or new updates with us?
Well, I think the thing that's top of mind for me is, I got up pretty early this morning. Like we, we're kind of reached the end of our launch sequence for Moon River today. So that was, some 5-6 hours ago or so. We kind of activated like all of the features. So now, Moon River is fully operational, with smart contracts, transfers. And so that's, that obviously is the result of, the team putting in quite a bit of work. So yeah, I would say in terms of ecosystem, I mean, we have a bunch that we've talked about, but there's actually, there's a bunch more projects that like, where like they'll be announced like as they're deploying. And so that's gonna, I would say kind of stay tuned in the coming weeks for that. I think what we're realizing is that, when you're kind of, you have this thing now, but there's like this order of operations. So now it's like, okay, well, these guys require the Oracle, so then we need the Oracle. And so there's this kind of spider web of different dependencies that's a little bit complex. So we're trying to, figure out like how to like, get all the pieces kind of in place in the right order so that people can, kind of successfully deploy.
I feel you, Derek.
All right, thank you. All right, so I guess I'm just gonna, give the last question to Bette. Again, same thing about anything new from Acala. Anything that you want to share with us? Something, let's say, Karula swap or AUSD, any new partnership, Anything you feel like a proud or exciting to share with us?
Yeah, so I think the easiest way is just try it out, because finally we are live now. So even no longer testnet. So you can go on to the Karura app, like the apps.karura.network, and then you can ape in there. At the moment, it's close to 100%, APY. So there's 1,200, I think, daily active traders on there. The 60,000 accounts, being open and trading. So I think folks can just like ape in and try all of those protocols out, minting stablecoin and doing all sorts of stuff. Like basically everything we said on my paper is already there in a product form. So just try aping and tell us what you think. And I guess there's more to build. Yeah.
All right. Congratulations. So I think we started the session like 4 or 5 minutes late. So I still have like a couple more minutes, for questions from audience. So surprisingly, I see the first question. Actually, the question was most votes is a question for Yubo. Yubo, can you actually read into the question and answer sections? You will see the top questions for you. So conceptually, the project is aimed at solving the problem with loans. But is there any statistics numbers that you can share about the volume and then the very need of people for those loans? Interesting.
Yeah, so first of all, we have over close to thousands of people using our testnet on a daily basis. And then we also have like very active community members trying to test it out and using it. But obviously this is testnet, so it's not like the mainnet. But regarding the demand for people to borrow loans, this is one of the most important primitive for any token holders in this space. One of them being the fact that they wanted to hold on their coins for longer term, but they want to have cash for their short-term usage. So for example, you start Kusama as collateral, and then you borrow dollar stable coins. And then the other use case is obviously for traders who wanted to sell or wanted to loan. They obviously need to have additional ability to borrow asset to trade. And then the other way is super important for us is obviously using the borrowed asset to restake into the system in order to have higher yield as another demand. And then obviously, lastly, people borrow assets like DOTs to participate in crowd loans, in governance proposals, and then those are like really solid demand. But if you go beyond like DOT itself as an asset, Polkadot ecosystem have a lot of valuable asset that, as I said, like value will accrue eventually to a lot of the parachains. So the parachain tokens will be in demand in the long term, no matter for transaction fees or for governance voting. So there is obviously a demand for earning yield on top or borrowing that for additional use case. So that's kind of how we think about the question.
All right, sounds good. Thank you for the question. Yeah, so I guess I'm just gonna, closing up this session. Thank you very much, for joining this session and sharing your view and thoughts with our audience. I'm sure that, people enjoying this session with us. All right, thank you guys.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks.
For having us.
You have a good day
Bye.
there.
Thanks,
Bye-bye.
everybody.
Bye.
Bye.